Hi there, today we're going to go through the GL Maths Familiarisation Paper 2. I recommend you have a go at it on your own first. There's a link for it in the description below. And then you can watch this video to see how you did. Let's start with question number 1. How many 10p coins can I get for £1.80? Well, I know in £1 there's 100 pence, so that's 180 pence divided by 10. I'm dividing by 10, so that 0 at the end is going to disappear, so I'm just left with 18. So the answer would be B. Question 2. This bar chart shows during which months the children in a class have their birthdays. During which month are there most birthdays? So we're just looking for the highest bar, and that would be July with 6, so that would be D. Question 3. Change the order of the figures 6,085 to make the biggest number possible. So I want the largest digits at the start, so I'm going to choose 8 first, and then I'm going to choose the 6, and then I'm going to choose the 5 and finish with the 0, which would be option C. Question 4. The time in New York is 5 hours behind the time in London, and in London it is 9 AM. What time is it in New York? If it's 9 AM in London and New York is 5 hours behind, I need to do 9 AM minus 5 hours, which is going to be 4 AM. So we can't see 4 AM here, but I do see this 0400, which is 4 AM on a 24-hour clock. Question 5. What are the coordinates of 8? So anytime I'm reading coordinates, I just read along the corridor. I go up to 2, and then I go up the stairs to 1. So that would be 2, 1, which would be E. Question 6. Write this number in figures. I've got 8,000, which is written like that, and I've got 25, and if I added those up together, I got 8,025. So that would be option D. Question 7. Share 240 into 4 equal parts. So I'm doing 240 divided by 4, and I can do 24 divided by 4, which is 6, and there's a 0 there, so I need to place a 0 at the end, so that would be B. I could do 60 times 4 just to check that as well. Question 8. What fraction of the circle is shaded? So I can see it's already first split up into quarters. That's a quarter, that's a quarter, that's a quarter, and that was a quarter before, but then they split it up again in half. So that would be an eighth, and that would be an eighth. So that would be 1/8 that had been shaded in. Question 9. In the number 836, what does the 3 stand for? Well, this is my units. I've got 6 units. I've got 3 tens, which is 30. And that 8 would be for 100, so 3 tens, which would be E. Question 10, what number would go into the box? I've got an equivalent fraction question here, so I need to think, what have I multiplied by on the bottom to get from 4 to 8? I've multiplied by 2 there, so I need to multiply by 2 on the top. 3 times by 2 would be 6, that's B. Question 11, Sati records how many children visit the school library each day. This is a bar chart Sati draws to show her data. How many children visited the library over the 5 days? We're going to need to find out how many people visited each day, and then we're going to need to add them all up. So we're going to read them all first. I can see this line is just after 12, and we're going to need to figure out how much is halfway between 12 and this next number. So each one is going up in 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And if that's halfway between them, that would be 13. That's on 10. That's on 16, that is on 5, and that one is on 11. If we add up all of these, let's see what we get. I'm going to add up the units first. 3 plus 6 is 9, add 1 is 10, 10 and 5 is 15, so I've added up the units there. 10, 20, 30, 40, so 40 add 15 would give me 55. Question 12. 3 pieces of wood are cut from a plank 1 meter long, and each piece is 30 centimeters long. So I can see I've got different units here. Let's just try and make this 1 meter into centimeters, and I know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So from meters to centimeters, I just times by 100. That's my conversion. I need to figure out how long is the piece that's left over. So I'm taking 3 pieces that are 30 centimeters long. So I'm doing 3 times by 30, which gives me 90. So far I've got 90 centimeters of wood, and altogether my original piece started off with 100, so 100 take away 90, which leaves me with 10. Question 13. These 3 angles fit together to make a straight line. So we need to know that angles on a straight line always add up to 180 degrees. Look at the angle below. How many of these 30-degree angles will fit together to make a straight line? All we're doing here is 180 divided by this angle. We're seeing how many times it would fit in. Can cancel out these zeros, and 18 divided by 3 would be 6. Question 14. Callum is thinking of a 2-digit number, and they've given us some options here. Is digits add up to make 5? 31 does not add to make 5. That does, that does not, and that does. So it's going to be one of these three. It is a prime number. Well, is 14 a prime number? No, it's not, because you can divide it by 2, so that one would not work. 23 is a prime number, and 41 is a prime number. And its square is a 3-digit number. Let's just think, if I squared 23, so I'm doing 23 times 23, I don't want to actually work it out, but if I did 20 times 20, that would give me 400, so my answer would be around 400. But if I did 41 squared, which is 41 times 41, but if I think of it as 40 times 40, I would get 1,600, which is more than a 3-digit number. It's going to be a little bit more. It'll be a 4-digit number, definitely. So my answer will have to be C. Question 15. What's the next number in this sequence? Let's just see, are they going up or down by the same amount every time? From there to there, I've taken away 6. From there to there, I've again taken away 6. So it's always take away 6. So 31 take away 6 would be 25. Question 16. The thermometer shows the temperature in Kiev. London is 18 degrees warmer. What is the temperature in London? Let's just read what this temperature is. I can see it's below 0, so that would be -1, -2, -3. So right now the temperature in Kiev is -3, and I need to add 18 to that. Could think of it as 18 take away 3, or -3 add 18 would be 15. 324 divided by 6. Let's just work this out. So 6 doesn't go into 3, but it does go into 32 5 times with a remainder of 2, and 6's into 24 would be 4. So my answer is 54. Question 18. How many times would you have to fill the 250 milliliter bottle to make 1 liter? So I'm thinking, how many times does this one go into this? And they've given us some other bottles just to help us with our reference. We could also think of 1 liter. We've seen this conversion before, but 1 liter is the same as 1,000 milliliters. So how many times does 250 go into 1,000? If you do your 250 times table, it would go into 1,000 4 times. So my answer would be 4. Question 19. There were 24 marbles in a bag. I take out 1/3 of the marbles. How many marbles did I take out? So 1/3 of 24, all I need to do is divide by 3. I divide by 3, and normally I would times by 1, but I don't need to do anything here because times it by 1 doesn't do anything. 24 divided by 3, splitting up into 3 parts, would be 8. Question 20. Karen wants to buy a guitar. She has saved $43.95 and the guitar costs £65. How much more does she need? So I'm doing 65 take away 43.95. Now the way that I would do this, I would go from 65 and I would jump to 45, and that would be a jump of taking away 20. And then I could jump to 44, which is taking away 1. And then I'm going to 43.95, which is taking away 0.05. And if I add up these three numbers, I've got 20, I've got 1, and I've got 0.05. If I add up all of those together, I get £21.05, which would be B. Question 21. Put these numbers in order from the smallest to the biggest. So let's just write them above each other. So I'm going to put 0.525 there. And I'm going to make sure the decimal points are always in line. So I've got 0.7. If the decimal points are in line, everything else will be in line. So I've got 0.35, 0.175. And if you want to, if it helps, you can put extra zeros, but I don't feel the need. Let's just find which one is the smallest number. That would be this one. So this is the smallest number because there is a 1 in the tenths column. So that's my smallest. It could be this one, it could be this one, or it could be this one. It can't be that, and it can't be that. Let's see which is the largest number. The largest number will have the largest number in the tenths, and that would be that 0.7. I can see it can either be that one or that one. So we're just going to compare these two. I can see they've got a 0.35 there and they've got a 0.525. So the number that is smaller from those two is that one. So my answer here would be C. Question 22. 8 chocolate bars cost £5.20. How much do 6 chocolate bars cost? So I'm going to create a little table. I've got chocolate bars on my left hand side and my cost on my right hand side. I know 8 chocolate bars cost £5.20. I could work out what 1 chocolate bar costs and then I could go to 6, but I think a little bit easier would be if I go to 2, because 2 goes into both 8 and 6. If I think about how many times 2 goes into 8, I've divided by 4 and I need to divide by 4 there. So divided by 4, I half it twice, and half of 52 would be 26 and half of 26 would be 13. So 2 chocolate bars would cost me £1.30. I want to find out what 6 chocolate bars cost. So from there to there, I've times by 3. I'm going to times by 3. 1 times 3 is 3 and 30p times by 3 is 90p, and it's nice we don't have to carry over, so that's why I just did it like that. That'd be D. Question 23. What is 50% of 40? If you're finding 50%, what do? We just divide by 2. So that would be B. 40 divided by 2 is 20. Question 24. The bar chart shows the heights of a class of pupils. Which statement must be true? One child is exactly 165 centimeter tall. If we take a look at this graph, we can see all of these are in ranges. So some students in this part of the graph, in this part of the chart, they measured between 160 and 169. So they could have been either 160, 160.1, 160.2, 161, any number between these two numbers. So we don't know what they actually are. So that would be wrong. B, 5 children have a height between 120 and 129. Well, yeah, that would be correct, because you can see there's 5 people here between 120 and 129. No children have a height less than 111. Well, there could be someone with a height of less than 111, because there's students that might be measuring up to 110 even in this part of the chart. So it's not that one. D, 7 children have a height of more than 140 centimeters but less than 150 centimeters. So we can't say that, because this part of the chart goes from 140 to 149, not 140 to 150. So we can't say that. And E, 8 children have a height of less than 139. Well, there are 8 here, but there's also 5 students here and 4 students here. So there are more below 139 than just this part. So my answer would be B. If you do find your answer quite early with a question like that, just check the other ones just to make sure that you've got the correct one. Question 25. A television program finished at 4:55 p.m. and it lasted for 3/4 of an hour. So we're trying to find 3/4 of an hour. Well, 1/4 of an hour is 15 minutes, so 3/4 of an hour, 15 times by 3 is 45, so 45 minutes. And if it started at 4:55, I need to take away 45 minutes from that. So all I'm doing, I'm reducing the minutes part of the time by 45. 55 take away 45 would be 10, so it's going to be 4:10 p.m., which is B. 26. Which of these moves is not a translation? A translation just means that it's been slid across. It hasn't changed at all. So we're looking from 3 to get to 5. 3 to 5, well, that's just been slid across, so that would be correct. 4 to get to 1, that's been slid across, that's fine. 6 to get to 4, that's fine. 5 to get to 2, well, 5 to get to 2, if you look at these two, somehow they've rotated along the way, so that means they haven't just been slid, so that means it would be D. Let's just check E as well. 1 to get to 6, well, that's correct, they've just been slid across. Question 27. Zoe has a large carpet in her room. It is 5 meters long and 4 meters wide. What is the distance all around the edge of the carpet? So this is basically a perimeter question. We got 5 meters and 4 meters there. This would also be 4 meters and 5 meters because it's a rectangle. We have the same sides opposite. We just need to add up all of these. You can do 5 add 4 and then times it by 2, or you can just add them all up together. 5 add 4 is 9. 9 times by 2 would be 18. Question 28. Ella paid £780 per month in rent. How much rent did she pay in 12 months? So we're doing 780 times by 12. And if we did 800 times by 10, I know my answer would be around 8,000. So we're looking for our answer around 8,000. It's definitely not going to be that one. Let's do 78 multiplied by 12 first, and then we'll just times it by 10. Well, 8 times 2 is 16. 7 times 2 is 14, and the 1, which is 15. So I've times it by 2 already. We're going to times it by 10, which would be 780. We'll add up these two numbers. We got a 6, a 13. 1 and 7 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So we have 936. And if we times it by 10, we get 9,360, which would be E. Question 29. Jenny is wallpapering her bedroom. She starts off with a 6-meter roll but has to cut off 1.75 meters because it's damaged. If she needs 33.75 meters of wallpaper in total, how many more rolls of 6 meters must she buy? Let's just go through this first bit. She starts off with 6 meters, but she has to cut off about 2 meters because it's damaged. So we're going to do 6 take away this much to find out how much she has left over. 6 take away 1.75. 6 take away 1 is 5, and if I take away 0.75, that will leave me with 4.25. So I've got 4.25 meters of roll so far. I need to try and get to 33.75. So I can see 6 goes into 30 5 times, and if I add 30 to this, I would just end up a little bit over, which would be the correct answer. So I need 30 meters of roll, which would be 5 rolls. So I need 5 rolls of 6 meters to get me up just past 33.75. If I got 4 rolls, that wouldn't be enough. So 5 would be the correct amount. Question 30. An empty box weighs 150 grams. When it's filled with paper, it weighs 1 kilogram. So 1 kilogram is the same as 1,000 grams. How much does the paper weigh? So all we're doing here is we're taking the box, which is 150 grams. We're putting paper in, and then once it's filled, it weighs this much. So the question that we're working out is 1,000 take away 150. The way you could think about this, if you do 100 take away 15, you get 85, so it'd be 850, that'd be C. Question 31. Mrs. Shaw has 175 milliliters of liquid. She needs a container for it. Which one suits her needs best? A bath, well, a bath can fill many liters, maybe 20 liters or something like that. So that wouldn't be good, that'd be too much. A mug would probably be okay because you can fit around 330 milliliters in a can, so a mug will be quite similar. A large saucepan might be a bit too big because you might be able to fill a couple of liters in there. An egg cup, I think it'd be too small because you can only fill maybe 5 milliliters or 10 milliliters inside that. A bucket, you'd probably be able to put in a couple of liters, so it wouldn't be suitable. So the most suitable would probably be a mug. Question 32. The vertices of the 2 squares below are labeled with letters. So I've got one square, which is this SRPQ square, and I've got another square, ZWXY. Just need to be able to see those 2 squares. Which of the following lines is perpendicular to the line connecting P and R? Let's just highlight the line P and R and have a think, what does the word perpendicular mean? So perpendicular just means if I have 2 lines and they cross each other and they meet at right angles. So you can see there's a right angle at each of these corners. If we take a look at P and R, I can see S and Q are going to meet it at a right angle there. So we're going to look for S and Q. And S and Q would be C. Question 33. If X stands for a whole number, we've got X and 3 lots of X, so 3 times by X is equal to 36. What are 2 lots of X equal to? So we're trying to find out what 2X is. 3 multiplied by a number is 36. So to get X on its own here, I need to divide by 3 there, which would leave me with X there. And if I divide by 3 there, X is 12. So I'm doing 2, I know what X is, 2 times by 12, which would be 24. So the answer would be C. Question 34. A rectangle is drawn with the corner at 1, 1. So 1, 1 is over there. All sides of the rectangle are then doubled in length. So that means everything's been multiplied by 2. The new rectangle is drawn again with A at 1, 1, so A is staying in the same place. Where will the corner C now be drawn? So we're trying to figure out where this has moved to. Let's draw on what this new rectangle would be. Because everything's been multiplied by 2, it's got a scale factor of 2. We're going to multiply all of the sides by 2. Right now this base has a length of 2. If I multiply that by 2, I get a length of 4. And it has a height of 1. So it's going to have a height of 2 now, if I've multiplied it by 2. So this position of C, it's gone from here to here. We just need to read what that coordinate is. Go along the corridor to 5 and up the stairs to 3. So it would be 5, 3, which would be option E. Question 35. Which of these statements is not true? So which of these are false for this regular hexagon? What does regular and what does hexagon mean? So regular just means all of the sides are equal and all of the angles are equal. And hexagon just means there are 6 sides. So A, there are 6 equal sides. Well, that's true because it's regular. B, there are 6 equal angles. That's true because it's regular. C, the perimeter is 24. So all of the sides are 4. And there's 6 sides, so 4 times by 6 would be 24. So if I walked all the way around it, it would be 24 centimeters. So that is correct. There are 6 lines of symmetry. That would also be correct because I could draw a line at any of these vertices, any of these corners, and it would be a reflection. E, there is only one pair of parallel sides. Parallel just means that you've got 2 lines similar to train tracks and they're going in the same direction and they're not going to meet with each other. So these are parallel. I can see quite a few pairs of parallel lines. I can see one there and one there. If I use another color, I can see another one there and another one there, and I can see a final one here and here. So there's 3 pairs of parallel sides, so this one is not true, so the answer is E. Question 36. Add 0.02 to 7.8. If you need to write this out, just make sure you put in everything in the same column and your decimal point is in the same place. If the decimal point is in the same place, everything else will be in the same place. So that's going to be 28.7, so 7.82. Question 37. Emily has 6 sticks. Their lengths are 3, 5, 6, 8, 9 and 11 centimeters. Emily can lay the sticks to make triangles like this, and she wants to make the smallest triangle she can using the 11 centimeter stick. So we've already used that one. Which 2 other lengths of sticks should she use? So with this question, there's a fact that you need to know that the 2 shorter sides will add up to make longer than the longer side. So the way we can do this is if we look at these combinations, we're going to see which one is more than 11, but we want the smallest number underneath 11. So 3 add 5 would be 8, so that's too small. 3 add 6 is 9, that's too small. 5 and 6 is 11, so that's still too small. 5 and 8 would be 13, so that would work. And 6 and 8 would work, that's 14, but that's too big. So the answer here would be D. Question 38. Muhammad must get up at 7:30 hours, so 7:30 a.m. He goes to bed at 22:38 the night before. How long does he spend in bed? The way that I'm going to do this, I'm going to go from 22:38 and I'm going to go to 07:38, and that'll just make it a little bit easier. So if I go to midnight, that's 2 hours, and then if I go to 7:38 in the morning, that's 9 hours. So I've added 9 hours there. And then I need to go back 8 minutes. So if I take away 8 minutes, because I'm trying to get to 07:30, that's going to become 8 hours. And remember, there's 60 minutes in an hour, so I need to do 60 take away 8, which is 52. So it's going to be 8 hours and 52 minutes, which will be C. Question 39. Liam carried 10 parcels and each parcel weighs 250 grams. How many kilograms was this altogether? So altogether, let's figure out how much this weighs in grams. 250 multiplied by 10, which would be 2,500. And one of our conversions that we need to know is 1 kilogram is the same as 1,000 grams. To convert from grams to kilograms, I need to divide by 1,000. Let's divide this by 1,000. So that gives me 2.5 kilograms, and that would be B. Could have wrote it without that 0, but it doesn't really matter. Question 40. This graph converts pounds to dollars. How many dollars is 34 pounds? If I look on this graph, it only goes up to 4. It doesn't go up to 34, so I can't just read this off. I need to look for a number that goes into 34 nicely. Either I could choose 1 or I could choose 2. I think for this one, I'm going to choose 2. So I'm going to put £2, and if I read it off here, I can see £2 is the same as 2.5 US dollars. I want £34, so I've got £34 here. I'm going to times by, how many times does 2 go into 34? That would be 17. So on the right hand side, I also need to times by 17. 17 times 2 is 34. And this 0.5 or half times by 17 would be half of 17, which would be 8.5. If I add them two together, I get 42.5. So it's 42.5 US dollars, which would be A. Question 41. To add up all of the angles inside a polygon, you subtract 2 from the number of sides and multiply this by 180. An octagon has 8 sides. What do the angles inside an octagon add up to? The formula that we're basically using here, it's a very common formula that you need to remember, is 180 multiplied by n minus 2. And this just tells you how many degrees are inside a shape. So we use this formula to help us. And n is the number of sides. We're going to do 180 times by 8, because it's an octagon, 8 minus 2. So 180 times by 6, let's just work that out. 18 times by 6. Well, that's 48, 6, and that would be a 10. So it's going to be 1080. You can just follow this. You take away 2 from the sides, which you do here, and then you multiply it by 180, you do it here. But if you know this formula, it makes it a little bit easier, I think. Question 42. The bar chart shows the amount of money Lewis, Jordan, and Zoe have in their savings account. Which of these is not true? Lewis and Jordan have £35 together. So because we're going to be using the totals quite often, let's just read these out. That's halfway between 10 and 20. That's 15. That's 20. And that's 30. Lewis and Jordan have £35 altogether. Well, 20 add 15 is 35, so that's right. Lewis has half of much as Jordan. Well, 15 out of 20 is 3/4. It's not a half, so that one would be wrong, but we need to check the other ones. The children have £65 altogether. 30 add 20 is 50. 50 add 15 is 65. That's correct. Zoe has twice as much as Lewis. Well, 15 times by 2 gets me to 30, so that's right. Jordan has £10 less than Zoe, and 30 take away 10 gives me 20, so that's right. So the answer is definitely B. Question 43. The endpoints of 5 lines are shown in the answer options below. Which line is parallel to the line in the diagram? Remember what parallel means? It just means 2 lines that are going in the same direction, a little bit similar to train tracks. Because I need to check out all of these options, I'm going to check out option E first and see if that's right. So I've got 5, 2, 5, 2, which is over here, and I've got 1, 6, which is over here. And if I join those 2 lines together, you can see that they're matching up. They're going in the same direction, so the answer would be E. If I check D, let's say I put 2, 5. 2, 5 is there, and 4, 2 would be down here. So you can see these 2 lines will cross, and if lines are crossing, or eventually will cross, that means they are not parallel. If I check the rest of them, they wouldn't work, but the answer here would be E. If you see a question where you have to check all of them, I would always check the last one first and then work backwards. Question 44. What's the area of this rectangle? If I look at all of my answers, I notice that these are in centimeter squares and these are in meters. So first thing I need to do, I need to change these into centimeters. I know that in 1 meter, there are 100 centimeters. So for me to convert from meters to centimeters, I need to times by 100. So 0.8 times by 100 would be 80, and that would become 30 centimeters. To find out the area of a rectangle, I just multiply the base by the height. I'm doing 30 times by 80. 3 times 8 is 24. I need to put 2 more zeros on because there's 2 zeros there. So I'm looking for 2,400. And because I changed the units to centimeters, it's centimeters squared, which would be E. Question 45. What is 1.7 as a fraction? First thing I can do here, if I write 1.7, and if I put it over 1, I haven't changed anything here because I'm divided by 1. It's the exact same number. So I just need to get rid of this decimal on the top. So I could times by 10 to move it 1 place to the right. So it becomes 17 over 10, which would be A. And if you do 17 divided by 10, you get 1.7. Question 46, Greg thinks of a number. So with a question like this, we've got to look backwards. We've got to work backwards from the end. So the answer is 26. He multiplies it by 2, so I need to divide by 2 first. And then he subtracts 5 there, so I need to add 5. And he multiplies it by 3 there, so I need to divide by 3. So I'm going to do these three things. 26 divided by 2 is 13. 13 add 5 is 18. And 18 divided by 3 is 6. And if I check that, 6 times 3 is 18. Take away 5 is 13. Times by 2 is 26. So my answer there is 6. Question 47. Henry says that to change from kilometers to miles, you divide the number of kilometers by 8 and then multiply by 5. Which of these is not correct? Because I need to check all of them, I'm going to start with this last one first. I need to divide by 8 and then multiply by 5. So what's this divided by 8? What would 264 divided by 8 be? I know 240 divided by 8 is 30 and 24 divided by 8 is 3, so it's going to be 33. And if I times that by 5, I do get 165. So this one is correct. 216, if I go up to 240, which would be 30, and take away 24, so that would be 27. And 27 times 5 would be 135, so that's correct. C, if I get to 160, that's 20 plus another 4, so that's 24. And 24 times by 5 is not 125. It would be 120. 24 times by 5 is 120, not 125. So the answer would be C, but let's just check the other ones just in case. That would be 31 if I divide it by 8. And if I times it by 5, I do get that. That would be 21 if I divide it by 8. And if I times it by 5, I do get that. So C is the correct answer. Question 48. A shape PQRS is shown on a coordinate grid. Following a reflection, the position of point S in the reflected shape is 6, 1. In what line is the shape reflected? So I'm saying that S has been reflected and it's appeared here. The first thing that we need to figure out is what's the distance between the first position S was in and the new position that S is in. So if we count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's moved a distance of 8. So that means the line of reflection will be 4 away because it will be halfway away. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to appear in that direction. If I were to label this line, because it's on the y line, it'd be y equals, and that coordinate is 5, so it'd be y equals 5 if you needed to know it. In what line is the shape reflected? A horizontal line. Horizontal just means horizon. So if you imagine the beach, horizon goes from left to right, passing through the y-axis at 0, 6. 0, 6 would be up here, so that would be a little bit too high. A vertical line, it's not going to be vertical, it's going to be horizontal. I can get rid of E as well. Horizontal line that passes through the y-axis at 0, 5. Well, 0, 5 is there, and it's a horizontal line, so it should be this one. If I check D, that's 0, 4, so that would be wrong. The answer would be C. Question 49. The area of a rectangular playground is 210 meters squared. This is saying if I have a rectangle and I find the area of it, if I multiply x by y, because they're two different sides, they have two different letters. If I multiply them together to get the area, I get an area of 210. Which of the following could be the playground's perimeter? How could you work out the perimeter here? We've got x here and we've got y here, so the opposite side will also be x and the opposite side of the y will also be y. If we want to write a little expression for the perimeter, we could say 2x, adding up those two sides, and adding up those two sides would be 2y. So the perimeter we could represent as 2x plus 2y, and it's going to equal one of these answers. But if I divide all of this by 2, I get x plus y, and that means it's going to equal half of these answers. So it might be helpful if we divide all of these by 2 just for later on. So I'm going to divide all of these by 2, so I get 22, 26, 32, 36, and 37. The next thing that I'm going to think about is because we've got an area of 210, we're going to be looking at our factor pairs of 210. So what divides by 210? We'll start with 1, and that goes with 210. Next is 2, because it's an even number, that would be 105. 3 would go in because the digits add up to make a multiple of 3. 3 would pair with 70. 4 doesn't go in because if I double that and I half that, I would get a decimal answer. So 4 doesn't go in. The next one would be 5. And if I do 210 divided by 10, I get 21. And then I times it by 2, I get 42. 6 would go in because I can double that. So 6 would pair with half of that. That would be 35. 7 would go in with 30. 8 does not go in because 4 doesn't go in. 9 would not go in. 10 would go in 21 times. 11 doesn't go in. 12, 13, 14 would be the next one because I can double that. 14 would pair with 15 and the next number after 14 would be 15. So because you've got a repeat, that means you've stopped. All I need to do now is if I add up these two numbers, it should give me one of these numbers that I found before, x plus y. I know x times y will give me 210 and it's these two numbers. And if I do x plus y, it's going to give me one of these numbers. So I just got to check. 1 and 210, that's going to be way too big. That's going to be way too big. It's going to be over 100. That's going to be 73, still too big. 47, we're getting closer. If I got 42, that's still a little bit too big. And then the next one is 37, which would work. 10 plus 21 is 31, that's not an option. 14 plus 15, and that's not an option. So the correct answer here would be 7 and 30. Because if you do 7 times 30, you get 210. If you find the perimeter of this rectangle, you would get a perimeter of 74 meters. So the answer here is E. Question 50. 4 to the power of 3 times 4 times 3 squared is not the same as which of the following? One way I could make this easier is if I think about what are these numbers actually. So 4 to the power of 3, 4 times 4 times 4 would be 64. That's times 4 and that's 3 squared, which is 9. In A, I've already got the 9, which matches up. 8 squared is 64. So that matches up and I've got a 4 there, so that's correct. 3 squared is 9, so that's fine. 4 squared is 16 and 16 times by 16 would be 64 times 4. So this one is also correct. You could also think of this part, 4 to the power of 3 times 4 as 4 to the power of 4. So these two would match up with that part. For C, I've got 4 to the power of 3, which is going to be 64. So that bit is fine. Then 4 times 9 is also 36 and 6 squared is also 36. So this one is correct. For D, I've got 6, which I'm going to write as 3 times by 2. And then I've got this 12, which I'm going to write as a 4 times by a 3. And this 16, which is also a 4 squared. So if I combine these, I get 4 cubed times by 3 squared times by 2. So I can see I've got the 4 cubed bit correct. The 3 squared is also there, but this is a 2 and it should be a 4. So I think this one is incorrect. Then this last one, 36 is the same as 6 squared and 64 is the same as 8 squared. And let's just think about that. So I've got 6 squared, which is 36. That's going to be the 9 times the 4 bit. That bit's correct. And the 4 cubed bit matches up with this 8 squared. So this one is correct. So the incorrect answer would be D. You could just work out all of these, but I think it's a bit smarter to do it if you look at them in index form and you just think about them in a smart way. That's the end of the questions for today. I'd recommend you check out my channel for more walkthroughs on 11 Plus and GCSE. Otherwise, you can check out my website if you want to get in touch with me and ask me anything. I'll see you soon.